Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Deborah Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact, and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. This is Deborah Rue, and you are watching or listening to Human Potential at Work. I'm really excited about my guest, and she's been on before, and I'm just such a fan of her work. And I know many of you are a fan of her work, but we're going to take this conversation a little differently today because her work is so powerful in the United States. It is. My goodness, we're glad to have her. But we need to take what Judge Ginger Lerner Wren has done in the States and really expand it through the rest of the world. So, Judge Wren, thank you for being on today.
Deborah, it is such a thrill to be here. I cannot think, and I think we talked about this before, to me, talking about human potential at work. And when we think about work, we think about it in the most humanistic, right, and broadest sense in terms of social justice and what we all have to contribute. So what a thrill to be here, especially practically on New Year's Eve. So thank you for having me.
And you're also going to be part of the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator because they started with 100, and I was so blessed to be selected, and it starts January 10th. So this episode's airing January 18th, and LinkedIn's going to help us turn up the volume. So what a blessing.
That is awesome, and congratulations. And I'll tell you my LinkedIn story. Some years ago, you may not remember this, but in 2013, I was nominated for an International Social Justice Award out of The Hague.
Wow.
And that was the Hill Foundation, the Hague Institute for the Internationalization of Law. And I think you might remember, that this was like a Shark Tank social justice global incubator. And so I got to the semifinals, and I had already did my best to really leverage LinkedIn. And I went to a LinkedIn guru, and he helped me redo my LinkedIn page just for this. But then I get to the semifinals, and this was the task, that if you could come in first in your category, my category, and I was nominated for the mental health court. They called it a therapeutic court that screens for something like that. And if I can get there with a global American Idol vote, then I win essentially a trip to The Hague, and then I get to e-pitch my idea, my innovation, to a professional jury. It was really through LinkedIn that we get all our votes, and thank you, LinkedIn, for that. And of course, we came in top finalists for that award.
Yeah, I think your work is so important. It's very important in the state of Florida, which is the state I was born in, even though I live in Virginia now. But why don't we do this, Ginger? Why don't we back up a step? Because I know that I've had you on before, but let's refresh the audience's memory and tell us who you are. Tell us what you do. I know you have a wonderful book out that I highly recommend called Story Court. All right, you tell this.
Yeah.
You do it.
Yeah, I'll try to get it in the camera screen. A Court of Refuge. Stories from the Bench of America's First Mental Health Court, published by Beacon Press, which I'm so proud of, in 2018. And it tells the story of a community that had really no money, no funding, no grants, and yet this incredible thirst for justice to do something about the tragedy of the criminalization of people in our community, which is Broward County, Florida. I'm coming to you. It looks like my courtroom. It is my courtroom, picture of it. And I'm a county court criminal judge, and I sit in Broward County, Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. So that's where I'm coming to you from today. And I think that the story is just so inspiring because not only, Deborah, and to your viewers and audience, but Broward's Mental Health Court, which started over 25 years ago, we've diverted, it's part-time. I also have a regular criminal misdemeanor court division. This problem-solving court, which is deemed a human rights strategy, and I think it's probably the only problem-solving court that actually has defined itself in human rights terms, is not only in the United States, but of course has been implemented around the world, which I am so, so proud of. And the idea, I think, that if we have the courage, correct? If we have the passion, and we just take that step, correct, into putting ourselves in a space where we just say, look, this is an urgent problem and we must work together collaboratively from an interdisciplinary dynamic. We can solve vexing, serious problems, and using our creative resources and really just coming together collectively.
And Judge Wren, why don't you, just for people that are outside the United States, why don't you just talk about how your court is different, because it's so different. And I believe, in my opinion, every single court in the lands, and I mean the lands all over the world, should be like your court. Every court. When I think of social justice, your image comes in my mind. I want the UN inviting you all over the world to speak and to teach other judges and other legal systems to really care about the people, because why we get in trouble is for a whole lot of different reasons. And tell us more about why your court is so amazing, because it's so amazing. It should win tons of awards, international awards.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful that it does. And we've been so honored, from the President's Commission here in the United States to national organizations to international recognitions, obviously, but that's really not the point. I think that the point is this, that we have really, thanks to amazing pioneers in the law and scholars, we now know that the law is really interdisciplinary now, and that we've got all kinds of approaches, from trauma-informed approaches to conflict resolution dynamics to holding courts out in various community settings. It's infinite now as to what court systems can do to solve that are essentially local problems, where there may be policy gaps or just resource gaps. But now we do have the legal theory and we do have the tools. So let's talk a little, I think, just for the audience, about legal theory. So in 1989 in the United States, the first specialized problem-solving therapeutic court emerged, and many viewers and listeners may know, and that was the first specialized problem-solving drug court, ironically, also in South Florida, and that began in Miami-Dade County, with the recognition that Miami-Dade became the epicenter of the cocaine epidemic back when we had Miami Vice and cocaine cowboys and all of that from a cultural and healthcare dynamic. The theory that group, a small group of legal collaborators, state attorney's office, public defenders, judges, community stakeholders, other policymakers joined and applied what's called therapeutic jurisprudence as a pathway in order to really disrupt, if you will, the traditional legal process and offer an alternative now where we're not holding court in an adverse traditional sense. We're holding court now to serve others. We're holding court now to solve problems. We're holding court now in the recognition, that individuals and families faced with poverty, individuals and families that are faced with discrimination and just all kinds of disparities in healthcare, education, transportation, because of disability, because of just all kinds of what we define as social determinants of health, that we have the opportunity now to turn a courtroom inside out. Here now, a judge could be a problem solver. Here now, a judge could be a recovery coach. Here now, a judge could lend voice to compassion. Here now, a judge can create a legal process for diversionary purposes. So when we're talking just a great case study, a court becomes a case study, that what was the problem that our court was focused on addressing? The problem was what the phenomenon called the criminalization of persons with serious mental illnesses and other neurocognitive disabilities, correct?
Oh, yes, yes.
I won't go into the long history, but I think that we know the failed policies of deinstitutionalization. We were supposed to be moving to a community-based system of care where access to care became really the mantra and the goal and the mission. Of course, it failed. Soon after national legislation was passed, now people were being released and discharged from archaic, dangerous snake pits of institutions, correct? Only to go to the streets and then to jails, then to end up revolving into emergency rooms, back to the streets, back to jails, up into prisons. And there was no end. I think that when I think about human potential at work, I think, just going back to the heart of the matter, Deborah, and this is what we've talked about so often, so beautifully, is how did you get here?
Right.
How did you find your way here? And I think that does have to do with having to listen to those whispers, something larger than yourself. An intuitive sense, for example, when I was a former public guardian as a young lawyer, and I tell the story in the book where over the course of 10 days, 3 groups of family members came in for guardianship services, which I could not deliver based on our statutory construct. And they came in, and again, listening, observing, feeling, and caring about other people's plights. Each family told a different but similar story. Oh, Ginger, my mother has schizophrenia. I can't find help. I can't find treatment. People told me to come to you, and I'm thinking to myself, why would they say that? My office, I can't act as a guardian for people who have relatives. These were for individuals, adults that were indigent, alone, and had been deemed incapacitated by a court to manage their health, safety, and welfare, to make medical decisions, even death arrangement. By the time I had balked the 3rd family, and these families were so fatigued, you can see not only their fear, but you could also, it was palpable, their absolute fatigue. They were not going to be able to advocate on their own. They were not. They needed energy. They needed a voice. And I made a silent promise. Should really be the name of my next book, a promise. It wasn't anything I had ever dreamed of. It wasn't anything about working in the mental health space that I had even thought about. I didn't really know that much about it. And yet, I remember somebody said I could help. I guess I'm supposed to help. So I made a promise that if I can, I would. 3 weeks later, on a Friday afternoon, sitting in my office, a call comes in, a very vague call by an attorney friend of mine saying, somebody heard you speak at a legislative forum having to do with mental health. That was true. And they think you would be perfect for a high profile, highly responsible new position involving mental health. And would you be interested? And that was all
Wow.
the information I had. Within a month, I was now working for what is now Disability Rights Florida as the designated plaintiff's monitor in the federal class action of Sanborn versus Childs over our very large state psychiatric institution that at the time housed an estimated 1,200 people.
Wow.
I'm probably the only judge in the world that practically lived in a psychiatric institution, and I did. That was my job, and it was just so traumatic.
Oh yeah, I
For
imagine.
me, that I remember as I decided to leave that position. Advocacy monitors have a shelf life, and I had always wanted to run for office. And when I decided on the judgeship, I always hoped that all of the skills and expertise that I had gained through the training I received on this lawsuit for this litigation would serve me as a judge. And I had no idea that they were waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
That in fact, our criminal justice system, like all criminal justice systems around the country, around the world, are faced with the overrepresentation of individuals with all kinds of disabilities and certainly serious mental illnesses in jails and prisons, often experiencing incredible challenge, abuse, and neglect. And
we're going to lock them up
with very little hope of any care or recovery.
Which is why you were so important in this conversation. You have done it. Nobody else has ever done this. You need to be on the stage at the UN. You need to be at the World Bank. You need to be at the World Economic Forum, because we can't do this to people. I've heard, Judge Wren, that 65% of the inmates in the United States have mental health issues, have disabilities. Disabilities.
Correct.
So, and
correct.
I imagine that's much higher. I bet it's not 65 because...
Well, and when you think about the hidden wounds that women and girls experience, victimization and trauma, and they don't even know how to put that into words, I think for sure the impact of poverty, the impact of other kinds of comorbidities in terms of health. I'm so proud of our community. I always say you don't need a lot of people. A small group of people, as Margaret Mead had said, could make a huge difference. And we've linked with accountability through dignity, through compassion, through love, through turning a courtroom inside out, correct?
Yes.
Giving individuals voice, really adopting the principles of the Convention for Persons with Disabilities, correct? This is a human rights watch came and spent 3 days with us as they were doing their US survey in 2002 called Ill-Equipped.
Okay.
And I was so proud that they recommended this court strategy in order to prevent the further escalation of individuals in prison and in jails, and that we could have and intercept a court whose just designated purpose is to find those getting arrested so we could get them out. That that arresting people that are ill is unconscionable. And I think that we've diverted over 23,000 people out of our jail, no funding, no grants, just the shared vision of the stakeholders that you are working with to understand that there is an urgency, a clear, defined mission. I thought we could do it. I wasn't sure if it would work when we started, but I felt that family members and the community just knowing that we had a judge that got it.
Yes.
That got it, that understood disability rights, that understood human rights, that could take a court dedicated to human rights and give people back their personhood.
Yes.
That was really the central aim of the court. And to have lucky enough to have a clinician that is now was handpicked, is with me now over 24 years, Janice Blendon, who does global work on her own, recognized in Hong Kong and around the world. We are a global court, recognized at The Hague, and you know, making a huge difference in Scotland, hopefully making a huge difference in other countries as well. I feel that these principles, Deborah, this is about taking people across all these disciplines who love their work,
Right.
and bring it together from a social justice dynamic to create something that can solve serious problems from a social and healthcare sense.
So, Judge Wren, if you had a magic wand and you could ask for help, you could say, I need this money. You mentioned no funding, no grants. I just think we should just give you as much money as you need, put you on the global stage, and have you help us work this out. This is ridiculous. What are we doing to and we aren't even talking about what happens to families when we send people with disabilities and mental health issues into the prison system. It devastates the families. And so what could we do to help you? Because I know we got a lot of really brilliant people watching this show, and we have a lot of the UN representation and corporate representation. But
and thank
really,
them for everything.
what do you think we could do? And now we've got 500 corporations that have committed to disability inclusion with the valuable 500 with the World Economic Forum. Deborah, that's about employment. That's about everything, right? And so how can we have smart cities or smart communities if you're not in the picture? How do we do this? I don't think it's possible. We're talking about AI judges and robo judges. We need you in these conversations in a really powerful way, Judge Wren. And I would like to see you. I personally think you should be a Supreme Court justice, because I want you leading at a
well, now I have to take a sip of water.
That's right. Speaking of wonderful Supreme Court justices, but it's really, I'm serious here because
I know you're serious. And I just had a representative from Kenya reach out to me. We were talking, and I did speak to a Kenyan delegation in Canada not that long ago. And of course, the situation is dire in countries where we really don't have a strengthened rule of law, where there are no resources for anybody really with disabilities. And of course, it's very critical to have good leadership. But I think a couple of things. I do think that there's truths, that there's some basic truths that I just don't think are articulated, not on the world stage and not enough, certainly on the domestic front. And that is that recovery is real, that treatment works, that people with the most serious of mental illnesses go on and live a good life. Many return to work. I've had, I guess, the message that we really are so stuck in the old, still in the old language, in the old stereotypic response. We have not progressed. We have not advanced to really integrate the best and the most innovative information and technologies that we know what works, that recovery is real, that we need to change our language, that we need to focus on nothing short of the end reality, that the perpetuating these myths are so harmful on every single level, but from a human potential level, correct? Because these are people that contribute, that have faced serious mental health crises and gone to medical school, and they're in the sciences, they're in every domain of work, and yet still we're thinking that individuals are dangerous. Not true. So the discriminatory factor, I think, needs to be overcome. And the only way to really overcome that is for people to really understand that it's a new day. It's been a new day. And we need to take ownership of that. And the other facet, I think, for judges, for lawyers, for policymakers, internationally and otherwise, is to understand that when you're dealing with human rights problems, you must take a human rights response. That we cannot treat this like any other legal problem. It's not. When we have legal problems, legal, for whatever reason, failures, barriers in the system, whether it's the juvenile justice system, the foster care system, the criminal justice system, and we're dealing with human rights problems, talk about them as that they are.
It's so true.
So real policymakers could really then, I think, come together with more sense of urgency and more resource with a dire sense of urgency to solve these problems.
Oh, I agree. And I'm committing to make sure that I get Judge Wren really on the global stage. Y'all all help me because we need her. We've got to, once again, let's build back better. No, let's build back inclusively. Let's build societies that we want to live in and that we want our children to live in. And this is just so ridiculous. I remember I told my son when he was 16, do not get in trouble with the law. Now, of course, I know that, Mom, but I said, no, you don't understand. You don't want to get in the system. Don't get in the system. Once you get in the system, I can no longer really help you. And so I really took the time to explain to him why he had to follow certain laws, because he's a kid. He thinks there's so many moving parts to this. And so I want to work with you to help you figure out how we expand this.
That's exciting. I'm so in.
Yes.
And I really appreciate you championing my work, of course, and all of the work that's going on around the country, that we understand that we could all be agents of healing. We could all be agents of change, and that it's not all about money. Oftentimes we know it is, but if we work on prevention, if we really get upstream, if we really focus on inclusivity, if we understand culture, if we really understand that compassion and dignity are fundamental. Yeah. Dignity is fundamental. How are people going to feel that they have been heard, cared about, listened to? How do we strengthen the rule of law in terms of, wait a minute, we can reasonably disagree. But we could also care about each other's positions, listen, support, make decisions, reach consensus. That's just the way diplomacy and leading and really, I think, innovating change works. But we must put people first. We must.
I agree. But we know that we want to build back better, build back inclusively. Let's make society work for more people. But there are members of our society that have answers, and you are one of those members. And so what I think I'm probably nagging a little bit about, but I want us to take the people that have done it and put them at the top so they can help us do this all over the world. And so I think our entire community needs to get behind Judge Wren to really help her be even more successful. So I just want to say that. But Judge Wren, I know I've kept you longer than I promised, but tell the audience how they can find your book. How can they find out about your work? What if they do want to reach out to you? You had mentioned LinkedIn. I know you're on LinkedIn. Tell us how they can find out more about your work and get in touch with you.
Absolutely. First of all, I've done a lot of writing, not just this book, but I'm a former contributor to Huffington Post on the back pages, and also do a lot of writing on Medium. I have several ebooks out. So there's a lot of writing. You'll see all with related themes on therapeutic jurisprudence and trauma and human rights and and suicide prevention and mental health, and I'm really crossing that domain. But if anybody wants to reach me, I don't know if we can put this in the chat bar, but you're welcome to reach out to me at jwren at 17th.floridacourts.org. I'm sure that email is in my wiki. I'm also on Twitter.
We can add it. We'll add the contact information there too. Yeah, you can definitely find Judge Wren, and we have featured her multiple times on my other show, Access Chat. And once again, she's been on Human Potential before too, because we really love your work. I really think of the families you are affecting. I just am really grateful.
It takes Access Chat and everybody at Rue Global and Access and ADIAS and you name it, it takes all of us. Right?
Yeah, we've got to champion each other, and we've got to make sure that if we hear somebody that is really doing work that would help others, let's champion them. Let's let that be our 2022 New Year's
All right. That's a beautiful resolution.
Help each other. Yeah, let's help each other. So we'll put all of her previous shows and all the information when we post it. And if you can't find her, just come to me and I'll connect you to her too. She is a judge. She has all kinds of rules that she has to follow, just for everybody to know. So if you ask her something and she can't do it, she's the judge. She knows what the law is.
Yes, please understand our ethical considerations.
Yes, because I sent
disclaimer, ethics.
That's right. I sent somebody to you once, but it was for a whole different reason for what they actually asked you, and you were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a judge." Yeah, I was like,
"Yeah, right."
I wouldn't have sent it.
That's a good thing. Those are good things.
I agree. That's why we are just thrilled with you, because we need our judges to be ethical and follow our laws as well. So thank you very much for that. But really, I'm such a fan of your work. Thank you. Thank you.
Ditto.
Thank you, Ginger. I just appreciate you, and I look forward to being on some major stages with you.
I look forward. That'll be a great day, and happy New Year. Happy, healthy to you and to everyone. And we're gonna come through this together.
Yes, we are. And also Judge Wren is part of Billion Strong too. She's making a difference. So thank you so much. Thank you to the audience. We all know it's been really hard. So blessings to everybody, blessings to all of us, and Happy New Year. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.